We go. All right. And this should be a private stream, so we'll see how this works. And I'll try a little editing later on in the studio, and we'll see how this goes. But hey, hello everyone. This is Troy. I'm here with my buddy from the other side of the pond, Matthew Flynn. It's good to talk to you, my friend. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Yeah,
good.
Kind of a crazy, morning for me. What is it, afternoon or evening for you?
Yeah, afternoon.
Yeah, I happy Sunday at least. At least we're still in the same day here. I'm gonna make the joke I always do with people in different time zones. Since you're so far in the future, you want to check the lottery numbers for me and let me know. I'll play them and I'll split the money with you.
I would do that if I could leave my home.
Yeah, good point. Oh, see, we're able to play the lottery from home now. With a credit card, we could just go to the lottery commission, get some numbers and play it. But yeah, they make gambling as easy as possible. But the rest of your life has to be as complicated as they can. Yeah. But yeah. So that's my little time travel joke, which I think is going to bring us well and squarely into our topic for today. Ironically, I'm completely discombobulated because I completely set the wrong time for this stream, and I got a text from you, Matthew, saying, "Hello, are we doing this?" And I'm like, I had set the stream for a week in the past, and my alarm didn't go off, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't think I could have salvaged this if I had a TARDIS. So luckily, this isn't a truly live stream. This is pre-recorded. This is not live. It's Memorex. So we'll get this fixed. So topic today is as I understand is Doctor Who, and my goal was really just to touch base with someone from the community who has not only a different perspective on Doctor Who for myself, who is a fan. Am I right? I'm not speaking.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. He's a fan of Doctor Who, but has consumed Doctor Who in a way that I never could, because you're literally over there receiving it firsthand, right? Because you're receiving it directly from the BBC, whereas I, for years, had it filtered, sometimes by many years, before I could get episodes, because we would get it from the BBC through our public television, and in different states that was completely unconnected networks, of channels. So I would get it here in Chicago, but maybe someone in another state wouldn't, and we'd be talking about it. It was a very, very different. It was like an underground movement in order to enjoy Doctor Who for many, many years, which of course leads into the whole intrigue of the lost episodes and so on and so forth. But I think what I'd really like to do is I'd like to start with you, Matthew, if you'd be willing to share your so I guess I didn't make this a private stream. It looks like it's going out to the world, because I see Daniel Heron's jumped in here. But okay. Hi, Daniel Heron. How you doing?
I see Schooner Tuner as well.
Oh yeah, hi Schooner. Well, you know what? That's fine if you guys want to enjoy. Like I said, we're actually meant to be recording, and I was going to edit this to throw up on Rumble later on. But hey, how you doing? It looks like we have a live studio audience. Anyway, so Matthew, if you'd like to share with us, it's now an us, share your no Daniel, that's fine. It's okay that you're here. I thought I had set this to private to go up later, but that's okay. If you're here, hang out. Maybe you'll have some questions for Matthew too. But let me focus. Let me focus. Okay. Literally, as I was kind of saying, I literally just woke up 15 minutes ago, so my head's still groggy. I am sipping on a Rockstar Pure Zero energy drink here, so I'm trying to get myself going, get my caffeine up. I should have asked you, Matthew, what are you sipping on?
I'm not currently sipping on anything, but I have just eaten a crumpet. Like I was literally just finishing it as we were talking.
How awesome! I mean, talk about culture. I asked the Brit what he's having, and he says that he just had a crumpet. Yay! Okay, that's actually exciting to the Americans on this side. So you're like, yeah, whatever, dude. Anyway, so if you would please, what is your history with Doctor Who? How old were you when you first started watching, and what Doctor would that have been, and so forth?
So I started watching Doctor Who late into Christopher Eccleston's run. So right after the show returned from hiatus. Well, I believe it was the first hiatus, I think.
Yep.
Well,
it was the big hiatus. Yeah.
I believe before Christopher Eccleston, there was a TV movie, I think.
Had you not seen that at that point?
No, I have not. I've mostly heard like rumblings and whispers about like all of before Christopher Eccleston.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is.
I have a minor pet peeve with the BBC in relation to actually getting a hold of the classic Doctor Who series. I don't know if I should go over that now or leave that for later.
No, please go ahead. So, because that I suppose is sort of part of your story. If you came to it with Christopher Eccleston, did you come into it going, "Oh well, I need to get caught up" or something like that?
No, when I came into the series, I had no idea there was anything before Christopher Eccleston.
Really?
So I came into like late into his run. I think he only did one season.
Mm-hmm.
I know David Tennant did 3 or 4, I think. And then Matt Smith did. I know that Christopher Eccleston was, I think, the only one who did one season.
Yeah. In fact, as prior fans, we were a little disappointed with that because we came into it knowing the whole limitation of number of regenerations, and we're like, well, that's kind of a waste of a regeneration. We only get one season out of them. But yeah, and then when you try to count how long Tennant's span was, that's there was a season that was really like a bunch of specials. So yeah, what you consider a season for him or series, I suppose, is, if we would use your terminology, is a little different. But yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So you'd be like I suppose, if I'm going to put a label on it, you'd be a second generation Doctor Who fan. You came in with the second big wave of Doctor Who stories.
Yeah, I came in. Yeah, that's about the time I came in, because David Tennant's run was probably the most popular. I think that point was more like the height of the series.
Yeah,
I know that his Christmas special, I think it was the one with Madonna, the Titanic in space. I forgot what that episode's called.
Kylie Minogue. Yeah,
that's it.
She's like the Australian Madonna.
I'm confusing blonde
as opposed to Billy Piper, who was running around with them, previously.
Yeah, and Captain Jack, and I forgot who else was also introduced in that series.
Well, yeah, there was a bunch of characters that were new, basically in that episode. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Mickey Smith as well. He was introduced in Christopher Eccleston's run.
Oh yes, the Tin Dog.
Yeah, because I know some of the characters from Christopher Eccleston's run carried over into David Tennant's, his first season as the Doctor.
And that always was one of the awesome things. Whenever there was change, you usually had some matter of continuity. If it wasn't a new companion coming in with an older doctor, it was the new doctor was being ushered in, and you still had a companion that you knew. So there was some touchstone for the audience usually.
Yeah.
That hasn't always been the case, but yeah.
Yeah, basically, I was watching I think it was Saturday. Basically, every Saturday, as soon as I watched the very end of Christopher Eccleston's run, and then I was watching basically week to week. Basically, after that, when David Tennant came in, I basically watched all the way through. Then I watched most of Matt Smith. I think about halfway through, I just sort of lost interest and stopped watching.
Sure.
Yeah.
You lost interest about midway through.
Through Matt Smith's
So
run.
you never even got as far as Capaldi.
No, I didn't get to that.
Okay. Well, that's actually a great place for me to kind of circle back around with myself, because by the time Capaldi comes along, Capaldi, he's an older gent. He's older than I am, and he, like myself, would be a Doctor Who fan from way back. I joke about being an old man, but I am not as old as, Doctor Who. Doctor Who started in the 60s, and I wasn't born until 71. And we did not even start getting most of the episodes until late 70s, early 80s. By that time, we were already 4 doctors in. And a lot of the episodes were never seen here in the United States. So we were already playing catch up, where we were, trying to get a hold of bootleg copies of them at conventions, and going to conventions and watching them in small auditoriums, shown for the first time in the United States, and so on and so forth. It was a pretty odd time. In fact, the mate of mine who got me into Doctor Who in the first place, his dad had moved around a lot, so he had been overseas. He'd come over here and so forth. Was a Doctor Who fan, and he was able to consume almost all of them because every episode had a novelization. So he was able to, he collected all of the novelizations and literally had read from, what was the first episode? It was the not Timeless Child. That's the Atma episode. Whatever the first story was with the first Doctor, right on through. He had all of the novels, so he knew the stories, even though he hadn't seen all of the episodes. But the reason I mentioned Capaldi was because Capaldi really was watching them almost from the beginning, and he was, like diehard nerd fan, like we would be, right? And he collected the Doctor Who. Well, they didn't have the Doctor Who magazine at the time. He read the fan-made fanzines and even contributed, to them. He sent in a letter about, his opinions and feelings on it, and he was like a big fan. So and I think if I recall correctly, Tennant said that he was something of a pretty diehard fan even before he came to Doctor Who as well. So these are people that always dreamed about being involved in Doctor Who, and then they became the Doctor. They went into acting because they were interested in, and then ended up being cast. So I think you'd hear a lot of people say that Capaldi, they liked Capaldi. He did a great job with what he was given. Any weakness on his part had nothing to do with him himself. It was more the writing and what he had to work with at the time. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, let me circle back and give my story a little bit. So I started, so I met my friend Otto in the 1980s. I was in I'd just come to high school. You know, he and I met in high school, and he was, you know, telling me about Doctor Who. Never seen it, so I started checking it out, and that would have been square during the for us it was the fourth Doctor era, the Tom Baker. So you're going to hear most people say, "Oh yeah, Tom Baker's my doctor. He's the doctor. Everyone else is just a poser, you know, or whatever." And he had, although I didn't have the ability right away, he had gotten because he was subscribing to the Doctor Who magazines from Britain. He had a buddy sending them over to him. They had published the pattern for the scarf. You know, literally how many rows of each color and what color they were and whatnot. And, you know, he had that long crazy scarf, and I showed it to my mom, and my mom's like, "Yeah, I can have one of these made for you." You know, because she saw practical value there. You know, it's like, yeah, it's a silly sci-fi dress up thing, but boy, this will keep you warm. It's like wearing a whole Afghan, you know?
Yeah.
So and she did. The woman that knitted it for me said, yeah, it took as many stitches and as much yarn as a whole Afghan to cover a whole couch. But so yeah, that was where I started from, and we immediately started in on the intrigue of trying to find older episodes from the first, second, and third Doctors. The upside was that when a series would end, our local Chicago PBS, WTTW in Chicago, liked to keep that time slot dedicated to Doctor Who. Part of the reason was it was so popular in the Chicago area that our PBS works differently than it does over there. My understanding is that BBC receives licensing fees, up until recently, mandatory licensing fees, right, from everybody, you know, that could possibly consume the BBC. So they're getting their money no matter what. We, on the other hand, our public broadcasting receives a very, very small amount from the government. The rest is from private and corporate not sponsorships, but pledges, donations. For the companies, they're tax deductible. You know, they're tax deductible for everyone, really. But obviously, I personally can't afford a great deal. But what most viewers would base it on is, you know, I like these shows. These shows are important to me. PBS is important to me. I want to support it. So what they would do is they would have pledge drives, and people would call in and say, I'm going to offer this much money for the year because I watch Doctor Who. And by and large, the Doctor Who hour, you know, the late night, Sunday night, you know, here in Chicago, got the most pledges. And so they are, you know, the station understood, okay, we really do have to keep Doctor Who as much as we can, because that's what our viewership is really sending money in for. So I literally would volunteer to go and answer phones at PBS for even additional, you know, show support. And there's actually some footage of us somewhere. Someone has on videotape, you know, me in the hat with the scarf, and, you know, Otto sitting next to me with his scarf, and we're taking calls and, you know, writing down pledges and so forth. But in order to keep that hour open, when a series when the current series that they had gotten of Tom Baker had ended, they'd go into reruns, and then they would show, for us for a while, it was the third Doctor. Drawing a blank here. It was Hartnell, Troughton, John Pertwee. John Pertwee was the third Doctor, so they would start showing those. And of course, when you got to the regeneration, it's like, okay, here's where we start fourth Doctor, and we go through those again. And hopefully by that time, you're getting back into your next series. And we were usually like a year out. You'd see it like a year before us. So talk about spoilers. There was entirely that possibility for us. If we were reading the Doctor Who magazines, we'd know what had happened already. So when Logopolis came along, that was the episode where Tom Baker, he was actually he was the longest run, I believe, on television as the Doctor. When he finally regenerated, we knew Logopolis was coming more than a year out. There was no internet back then, but the news did still travel fairly fast, and so we knew that was coming. I had a very similar experience with kind of petering out from Doctor Who, because we went Tom Baker, and then it went Peter Davison, and then from him they went into Colin Baker, and Colin Baker was another one of those examples of, it's really unfair to judge the actor by what he was given to work with, because his character was incredibly abrasive, and most of the fans did not like this Doctor. They did not. Let's put it this way: when he wakes up from his regeneration, he attempts to kill his companion, and then he just treats her like crap. He berates her constantly. Nobody liked him, and a lot of fans just tuned out. And honestly, I did. I stopped watching at that point. So I didn't see the rest of the Colin Baker run. I did not see the Sylvester McCoy run. And then they went on hiatus indefinitely. So it was not until 96 when we got the move, and this was when we finally kind of started to sync up with you guys over there. We were getting it within 24 hours. It aired, the movie aired here as it did over, a few hours after it aired over there. So I kind of jumped back into it with that movie. Have you seen that broadcast film?
No, I haven't.
That would be Paul McGann. His one outing before the special.
I have seen somewhere of him, like a scene of him regenerating into the War Doctor. I think that was a part of the.
That was a part of one of the specials. Yeah, the Night
I don't know
of
if that was actually in the episode, or if that was like a separate short thing.
No, yeah, well, those were all shorts. So that they made it part of an episode, but originally they were released as shorts. So it's been since edited in to make it part of one episode. But yeah.
I do like that he came back to do that, even though he has such a short time with the brand.
And what I loved, and this is something that I don't really see much, we've had with all of our franchises, you have what you see on the screen, and then you have the extraneous material, right? You got the books, the comic books, and so forth. Those are usually considered to be non-canon until they're canonized, right? Yeah. And Doctor Who has done this where it's alluded to non-canon, but never really canonized any of it. And a lot of fans feel that, because as I had just said, Tom Baker has the history of having been the longest running Doctor, as far as, playing the role in like the most episodes on screen. Paul McGann actually is the longest running Doctor if you take into account things like the Big Finish audio dramas and books and so forth. And there was just a few throwaway lines in that special where he references those past companions that were never seen on screen, but only the book and audio fans knew of. So a lot of fans say it looks to the world like he canonized all of, those, extraneous, Paul McGann doctors, stories. I'm sure fans debate that, how much of that truly is canon or not, other than those companions existed for him. But it is his doctor, if you ever get into things like the audio dramas and stuff, very interesting, because there was a whole Time War story involving Paul McGann before there was a Time War introduced with Christopher Eccleston. So they could very well link up, especially the whole timey-wiminess of, things being rewritten. And, you definitely get that impression from lines that you get from later doctors talking about, paradoxes and so forth created by the Time Wars. It seems like a very chaotic time. That's something I'd really like to see them do. I really would love to see a Time War series or a Time War movie or something like that. But how would they do that? I mean, they've already decided that the War Doctor was the doctor that was in all of that, and he's not with us anymore. So I don't know. But yeah, so I guess I'm the old timer here, but I was kind of watching Doctor Who through a keyhole, and you were able to see it, first run, but you didn't start until the latter generation. So we both have our the stuff that's missing, so to speak. So you started on something earlier I wanted to circle around to. You were talking about how you struggled to try and see some of. Do you not have what we would call reruns or whatever, where they rebroadcast older series or something?
Yeah, we do have reruns here.
So
I've not seen any Doctor Who reruns.
Really? Okay. And
hold on a minute. I'm going to step away for a very brief moment.
Okay. Well, while you do, I'm going to continue and share a little bit about, because we have listeners, and I want to apologize to everyone. This is a very confusing, talk about wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. This is a really strange stream that we're doing today, because I had originally scheduled this with Matthew weeks ago. I completely set the wrong time, and so he's sending me a text saying, "Are we doing this?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, my alarm didn't go off. The scheduled stream isn't there, and I'm looking for it. Scheduled stream was actually scheduled for over a week ago, so it wasn't even on YouTube any longer. I had to recreate it, and originally I had intended this to be a private stream, just the two of us to record that I could edit later and then put up, but looks like I didn't make it private, but that's okay. You guys are all here. You guys can join in and listen in, and be a part of the conversation. But when Matthew gets back, one of the things I want to get into is talking about catching up on old Doctor Who. I want to find out what that's like for him. For us over here, it's been incredibly challenging, as challenging as it is for anyone who's looking for older Doctor episodes, because some of them are absolutely missing. There's some 90 some episodes that are missing to time, as far as we can tell. But
the Gladiator has returned.
Oh, fair enough. I was just bringing everyone up to speed on the craziness, because we've had some new people join in. Wasn't going through and saying hi to everybody, but I did want to say hi to Orville Nation. When you have a celebrity in the stream, you really have to say hi. Hello, Orville Nation. If you if anyone else is here listening and have not subscribed to Orville Nation, please do. That is some high quality, serious YouTuber out there. I'm just a dabbler, but he's a serious a serious channel. But back to the topic. One of the things I was about to launch into, and I've kind of already touched on a little bit, was this idea of lost episodes, where for us, getting Doctor Who so far behind was a challenge, but there was a great deal of a desire on the part of the channels that were carrying it, to give it to us, because it really did mean our patronage. So if they got a hold of a second Doctor, a first Doctor, they'd play those episodes, even though they were playing them completely out of sequence, which I suppose in the retrospect for Doctor Who kind of works, right? I mean, you're kind of seeing the Doctor the way River Song kind of saw the Doctor, very much out of order. But so we would see episodes, and this was the very beginning of, this was the VHS era. You'd throw in your videotape and record it. So we were recording things off of TV when we got them. But then eventually, I would say late 90s, early 2000s, they started putting them on DVD, and they'd release them in the UK, and BBC realized, oh, there's a market in the US too, and so they'd start selling the DVDs here. And you may have seen, I did a video about my DVD collection and how I literally got every single DVD that was available commercially, and those that weren't, those that have not yet been released, there's fans out there putting together fan reconstructions, and even the lost episodes, the audio exists because people in the UK that were watching them first run had access to audio devices. They didn't have VHSs back in the 60s, but they had audio recording. So they would audio record, they'd literally put an audio recorder up to the speaker of their television and hit record and record all the audio. So that audio all existed. And there's a lot of great videos out there, if anyone's interested, about how the BBC reclaimed and got back stuff that had been lost. Those audios, they reached out and said, look, forget legalities. We know that technically it's not legal, but you have those audios. If you are willing to share them with us, we would very much like to, and they would take those audios and professionally, digitally restore them to the best quality possible. And then they would release audio CDs that people would purchase then, and they'd make more money there. But with those audio CDs, the fans would take those and match those up with telesnaps, which are just photographic slides that were professionally taken on sets of and released, in magazines and whatnot. So they could do like a PowerPoint presentation with the audio. So those are available out there on the interwebs, and I downloaded those and made those into DVDs. So technically I have something like some physical episode for every single one that was ever aired, including those 90 missing episodes, but they're not true restorations. They're just the best we could do with the audio that exists and telesnaps and whatnot. Some of the episodes are even being restored using animation. I've got some of those have even been done commercially and, released on DVD. I've gotten those too. So the fact is, that's an option. If you really do want to go back, those episodes do exist in a physical. And what do I always say? Get physical media. But I suppose that would be a considerable. We're talking, 30 some seasons of Doctor Who. That would be a considerable financial investment for you, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, there's no, like, I've not been able to find any complete collection of, like, individual seasons or individual runs from different Doctors.
I
The
know
only
that. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
the only ones I can concretely find and get a hold of are Christopher Eccleston to Jodie Whittaker. All of them, I can consistently, all of them. But then any further back, it's way more difficult.
Is it really? I that is just bizarre to me because it is so easy here in the US to get those. Literally, if it was commercially available, you can find it out there. Now, there are some of the older Doctors, individual serials and whatnot that are that have been released so long ago, they're no longer in print, and so they're very, very expensive. I literally will Nanette will like get me, uh, the disc or whatever, and I will copy it and put the copy into my collection, and I will take the original and put it away somewhere so it's never damaged because it's that precious. I don't want to run the risk of, this single disc that I spent $100 on, to get scratched or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's so much, and the other, it's in fact, it's so easy here in the States to get some of these that you have to be very careful and pay attention. You don't want to get the British version of the disc that you can't play on an American.
Because it's region 2.
Exactly. Which is just,
unless you have a multi-region DVD player.
Well, or the other option is I do have the ability to make a copy of it and strip the region encoding off. But the other problem is the difference between PAL and NT, whatever the encoding is that our televisions do. That's the thing that is not easy to re-edit. And that comes up in NTSC, I think is what it's called. NTSC and PAL are the encoding methods. It has to do with the number of lines on the screen, is different in the UK and the US. And that a very, very technical element, that difference has made it very difficult when a lost episode is found, say, in the US and sent back to the BBC, and the BBC then wants to turn it into a DVD to mass market. They have to somehow translate it back into PAL before they can, reissue it. So, and sometimes they'll get like color information. They have black and white film, but we have a color VHS tape, and they want to marry the color to the black and white. There's some very, very interesting technical aspects that kind of actually go over my head. I don't know that much about how it's done, but there's some dedicated fans that are in that industry that are really putting in the effort to make that happen. The Doctor Who Preservation Society and so forth. Very, very interesting stuff. When I re-edit this and put it back up, I'll add some links to the description for people that are interested in all that kind of stuff, because there's some great YouTubers that have done some great research out there about that.
Yeah.
But so if you kind of faded out during the Matt Smith era, I'm not going to say I blame you, because some of Capaldi got a bit cringy, and as far as I'm concerned, they probably should have just stopped at the end of Matt Smith. When Matt Smith regenerated, I'd rather just say, you know what, we're in the timeline where he didn't get any more regenerations, and it ended, and that's where it ended, because from there, Doctor Who kind of, in my opinion, went off a cliff. And then Jodie Whittaker happened. Not blaming her personally, but her Doctor pretty much killed the whole franchise. Have you been following that, and what have you seen from your point of view on that?
I've seen about as much as you have, well, except Jodie Whittaker's run and Capaldi's, but the actual information on it, I've not seen absolutely everything that's been said about those 2 seasons. I have seen.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I've seen most of the information on that, but not all of it.
I've obviously seen all of the scuttlebutt going on the interwebs, and people like Mecha Random and what's it called? Gary Beegler, I forget his channel. They talk about it a lot.
Oh, you mean Nerderotic?
Nerderotic, thank you very much. And they talk about it a lot. But again, we're talking about Americans that are consuming it and giving their opinions. I'm kind of wondering if you're keyed in with the community over there. Is there a Doctor Who? What is the Doctor Who community over there saying about it, and how are they reacting? Those that may not actually even be voicing it on the interwebs that I'm seeing.
I haven't actually followed that much of like the UK, like the UK fans and like that side of the community. Fair. I've not really followed much of that.
That's fair. I did have one friend in the UK who's not a big Doctor Who fan, so kind of hard for me to, put a great deal of stake in what he's saying. But so I feel like he's even less connected with the community. But he's like, oh yeah, everyone over here hates it and blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay, fine, mate. But you're definitely someone who's farther left than I am, and definitely feels like everybody is evil that doesn't support everything that every woman does, and that every that carries a message. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just, but yeah, I you may have heard my talks with Big Al about it when it was happening and whatnot, and Al was like, well, you're still watching it. And yeah, I mean, that's true. I was, and then until I wasn't, I eventually got to the point where it was just too much for me. I tried, I pushed through, I did my absolute best, like the 300 Spartans trying to stand against this tide that eventually just killed me, and I could not do it anymore. I got through the first season series, whatever you want to call it, of Jodie Whittaker, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And I quit. And so the only information I was getting after that point was through Nerderotic and the commentaries that I saw. And I just said, oh, just let this end already. And so now I don't know if there's been any official word, but a lot of rumors are going around that the BBC has decided that that there won't be another season of Doctor Who, at least not for the foreseeable future. I don't know if they solidified that or not. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I've not heard anything. I do think it is definitely time for Doctor Who to go on hiatus again, because I think the brand has been worn thin at this point.
See, I appreciate that you said that. Go on hiatus. Everybody's talking about cancellation, but that is a terminology that's very American for television. We have this concept of, if it's not in active, production, if it's not on the schedule for the next season, they officially cancel it. Whereas what is, I don't know about all of BBC production, but I know Doctor Who. Back during the Sylvester McCoy era, at the end of his run, they wrapped up the series, kind of in a way that for most shows you could see it as, this could be a good wrapping up point, or they could totally pick it up and run next season if they pick it up. And it just was never renewed. It was put on hiatus and never came back. It was never officially canceled, but it could literally go back into production at any time. So that's why years went by before I think it was the Fox network in the US reached out and said, hey, we'd like to do something with Doctor Who, maybe a joint thing. And that's where this, this television movie came from with Paul McGann, bridging the gap because they brought Sylvester McCoy back to do a regeneration scene. Very, very well done, I thought. And I heard it was very successful, that it was well received over in the UK, although there were some problems with it that diehard fans had some issues with. Same problems that the diehard fans over here had, but there was other bigger problems in the United States with the airing of that. As I recall, it was preempted. Some markets didn't get to see it. It was shown later on in the week in a late night slot. So a lot of people missed it. And it just wasn't, and coupled with the continuity problems with it, people just had a great deal of issue with it, and it just didn't cause that spark to, oh yeah, let's get a Doctor Who series going. Maybe for the best, because I don't think Fox did Doctor Who any favors. I think Fox Television ruined everything it touched here in the States, so it's probably best that they didn't ruin Doctor Who as well. But we'll give them props. It gave everyone a little, oh, Doctor Who still exists. And honestly, if it hadn't been for that movie, we probably wouldn't have gotten to the Eccleston era. But yeah, going back to what you kind of started me on was this whole idea that usually BBC doesn't officially cancel. So when I hear these rumors saying, yeah, Doctor Who's been canceled, it's like, or it's going to be canceled or whatever, I'm not dismissing what they're saying. I think they're misinterpreting what they're hearing. I think they're hearing, yeah, we're going to just put it on hiatus. We're not picking it up for the next season. And, we're going to rethink this thing. And they're probably going to do what they did with Sylvester McCoy, and they'll wait a couple of years, and figure it out. I think the best thing that they could do is just have the first female doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, film a regeneration. Don't show us the completion of that regeneration. And then, 5, 6, 10 years from now, have someone else finish the regeneration and then pick up from there.
Yeah. I actually have a pretty fitting comparison.
Yeah.
It's actually how the Godzilla films work over in Japan. They go for a while, and then when they start losing money, Toho basically says, "Okay, we're not getting money back from these. Let's put the franchise on hiatus for a while." And then after so many years, they then bring it back, and then the same thing will happen again. It's like, I think it's a Japanese thing where they recognize that the product's not making money anymore, so they've got to put it to rest for a while.
I do have to say that, talk about the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. You just look at it and you go, okay, we're putting money into something. We want to get at least as much money out of it, but obviously we want profit. That's what business is all about, is profit.
Oh, hold on a minute, I'm gonna have to step away again.
Sure. But we want profit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our money into something. We're going to do it as long as it's profitable for us. And when it ceases to be profitable, we stop doing it. Or we reevaluate why it's not profitable anymore. We do a little market research. We ask the audience what it is you like and don't like. What are we doing wrong, and fix it. Japan has focused on business. They don't care about messaging. They care about what makes the money. It's really that simple. I honestly have gotten to the point where I don't even understand how, the Western society understands business anymore. It doesn't seem to be about making money anymore. I don't even understand how they can continue. I said this when I saw the news that Batwoman was renewed for another season, despite the atrocious um, ratings. It's literally in the hole, and it started bad and got worse. There is no logical reason that something like that should be able to continue, and yet it's gotten another season. I I just don't understand this business model. Um, it's like the money comes from somewhere other than the people that are actually consuming the product, and it makes absolutely zero sense to me. But that's the world that we live in, apparently, and honestly, that's why franchises like this are able to limp along and continue to yeah, government bailouts, you know, and maybe it's not even just government bailouts. I think there's definitely deep pockets out there that are willing to pay for and throw bad money after or good money after bad, just because they want to keep something alive because they care about that message. They want to keep the propaganda going, and don't care about profits. That's the only thing I can imagine. But yeah, um, I
Okay, I'm back.
you almost want to say, thank you to Japanese business for having a sensibility. And although I've not been a big anime fan or anything like that, people like Boomer and Mr. Matchstick and Wolfie keep telling me, you'd be interested in this, you'd be interested in that. I just haven't been able to make that jump. But if all of these franchises keep going the way they are, I might just have to start going and consuming more Japanese entertainment because, they actually care what people like,
Yeah.
But yeah, excellent model. So yeah, maybe I do have a little bit more insight into the Jodie Whittaker era, just because even though I didn't watch it all the way to the end, um, did very much follow the commentaries and so forth, and she that storyline, it really looks like they completely decided to throw out all of continuity, which pretty much turned off every last fan that they had. There are no hardcore Doctor Who fans left anymore that consider that acceptable. I mean, the idea that everything we ever knew about Doctor Who is wrong, almost 60 years worth of 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 canon and continuity and technical manuals and wikis and all that sort of thing. Forget all that. Completely
Yeah.
meaningless, which is ridiculous because Russell Davies uh and Moffat were at least big enough fans to know the canon, to do their, if they didn't know something, they did their research, but they came to it with enough knowledge that they were like, okay, well, there can only be 13 doctors, 12 regenerations, unless the Time Lords give them new regenerations. And they went through that whole storyline. They didn't say anything about it, but the fans kept going, well, once Matt Smith regenerates, that's it, it's done. And they're going, and there's other people saying, well, that's not been reestablished as canon. It doesn't matter, it's already canon. Well, but that was the old canon. No, the canon is the canon. And sure enough, it turned out that Moffat was in on it, he knew it, and he had a storyline to continue it. In retrospect, it's almost, I wish he would have said, "Yep, that's the canon, and this is where the Doctor dies." But he didn't, and it limped along, and we've allowed it to be terribly tarnished, and now the canon is completely ruined. Unless the only hope that's left is that a new showrunner takes over, a new doctor is put in place, and the new doctor finds out, oh, it was all a lie by the master. Surprise!
Yeah.
Which would not be a huge surprise, right? That's what everyone's saying. It's kind of like if you ever watch reaction videos of children or spouses that are being indoctrinated into Star Wars, right, by their mates, and they're seeing Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and they do these reaction videos. No, I am your father.
Yeah.
And they have this look like, is that true, or is he lying? And when I was a kid and I first saw that, I didn't believe it. Just because he said it doesn't mean it's true, right? Well, we kind of got that situation now. The master is an unreliable witness, or unreliable narrator, as they say. But I guess you got to say witness, because he's telling it directly to the doctor. Well, you can believe him if you want to, but how often has the master ever actually told you the truth? That's their out. That's what all the fans are saying. BBC has been unwilling to listen up to this point, but now my understanding is they're starting to get hit in the wallet as people are starting to say, I'm not paying for my license. Maybe you have insight on that, because I don't really understand how that works too well, but I've been hearing that UK is saying that the license isn't mandatory anymore, so people are opting out.
Yeah, like hundreds, if not thousands, of people are just abandoning the BBC at this point, because obviously we can stream everything on our computer or just watch anything else on our computer without having to go to our TV. It kind of and also the BBC, like, they're attempting to do like streaming services, but it's like not really working. People, not many. I mean, some people are subscribing to like the BBC's like specific streaming service. Like the BBC and ITV have BritBox, which I don't watch because it's just a compilation of shows from both those two companies, which I already don't really watch either of them to begin with. So
it sounds kind of like how CBS over here has had their CBS All Extortion, where it's like you could subscribe for this pseudo trek and the backlog of shows like NCIS and Big Bang Theory and stuff like that. But it's all stuff that we already own on DVD or could get on DVD if we really wanted them. We don't need to pay a monthly fee to have them, maybe, if they decide to share them. It's pretty ridiculous. And then of course you have this whole situation. BBC is a strange animal to everyone outside the UK, because it operates on very strange concepts, very antiquated concepts too. This idea that you own the airwaves, so to speak, and you can I've even heard they have these vans that go around and can tell whether or not you're receiving and watching the streams or whatever, and it's like, nobody believes that technology just simply doesn't exist, and if it does, that's a huge invasion of privacy. That's absolutely ridiculous. And as technology changes, and people are not only not using the over the air aerials to watch television, they're not using cable anymore. And you're right, they're starting to stream. Now you can't even control the streams, because through VPNs you can watch a show and say that you're in Germany, or you're in US, or you're in the UK, or whatever. Literally, I could stream BBC through a VPN without paying for the BBC's license. you know, if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't bother, but I could if I wanted to. And there's nothing that the BBC can do to control that. So what like I said, it's an antiquated model that uh, what's that line from Star Wars? The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. The
Yeah,
more the
that's it.
BBC tries to tighten its grip, the more viewership it loses. I almost feel like they'd be better off switching to a model like our PBS has, you know, that I described to you, where, hey, the BBC is going to go away if you're not willing to support us. So we're doing a pledge drive. We're going to do these twice a year. You can call in and pledge however much money for the year. Tell us what shows you enjoy that you don't want to lose. You know, and you know, if everyone's saying, you know, I don't want to lose Doctor Who. I'm giving you $10 for the year, you know, put this towards Doctor Who or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, and suddenly you see all of your money's coming in for Doctor Who. Well, you can keep your cooking shows and your news shows and whatnot, but we need to have Doctor Who because that's what's bringing the money in. Suddenly, you you know you have a business model, because people are willing to pay if that's what it takes, but they're not willing to pay for, you know, uh, when you enforce payment like that and people aren't watching the shows, you can put out whatever you want. But if you put the power in the people's hands, then you suddenly have to start putting out a product that the people actually are willing to pay for, or they won't pay for it. You know, I don't think BBC has gotten to that point yet and understand that. I think a lot of our countries, our governments don't understand that either. But 2021, I think, is going to really be pushing that message. Just my thought. So yeah, I don't know when the new season would normally start, but we'll have to watch and see if you know, if they do bring back Doctor Who at all, and if there is any continuation for the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker, or if it ends there, or if it goes on to somebody else.
Yeah. I don't know why they decided to change the Christmas specials to just holiday specials, and also play it at like New Year.
You know what my theory is, right?
What?
My theory is that it's a social justice issue. We cannot continue to honor Christmas. We need it to be more secular, so let's make it New Year. But I think a lot of people have gotten so used to there being a Christmas episode. In fact, there's even footage of Matt Smith having a Skype talk with Billy Piper, and talking about, are you going to be watching the Doctor Who Christmas special? Well, it's not a Christmas special anymore, is it? Yeah. Why did they do that? I don't know. They downgraded it, I guess. That is a great audio clip. It's funny, but yeah, it's kind of sad. And people still call it the Christmas special, even when it's not on Christmas, even when it's for New Year. It's really, really, really sad.
I think it's just a tradition to call them the Christmas special because that's what they've been for so long.
So interestingly, give you a little bit of history of Doctor Who from before you were watching it. We have had Christmas episodes going all the way back to Christopher Eccleston. Before that, there weren't really regular Christmas specials. The very first Christmas episode, wouldn't consider it a Christmas special, but it was an episode, was the first Doctor, William Hartnell, had a series that was taking place during the Christmas season. And in one episode, one scene, they were jumping around through time, and they happened to exit the TARDIS in a time zone that happened to be during Christmas. So at the end of the episode, when the adventure was over, the Doctor brought out drinks for everyone to toast Happy Christmas. And they were like, what what's this? He goes, well, don't you remember back at such and such, it was Christmas. So let's celebrate Christmas. And, and a happy Christmas to all of you. And he breaks the fourth wall and he says, and happy Christmas to all of you at home, which my understanding is back then it was a very common thing to do because television back in the 60s, going back to the beginning of television, was always thought of as a teleplay. It was like a stage play being done in front of a camera, and the camera was the audience. So there was this idea that there was a fourth wall that could be broken to address the audience out of character,
Yeah, you would see that multiple times in comedies.
Yes, it's especially true in comedies. Going back to, gosh, actually, now I'm really getting my geek on here. Going back to the Shakespearean aside, that was written into the play to break the fourth wall. And now I can't believe I'm actually going to compare Shakespeare with Deadpool, but Deadpool is very much in that same spirit of intentionally breaking the fourth wall. But there was this idea that edited out of shows here in the US, you'd have the Lucy show, you'd have or I Love Lucy or whatever, and it would be done in front of a live audience, and the actors would come out and address the audience just like they were getting ready to do a play, and then they'd perform the play, and then they'd come out and they'd do their bows. But that was, of course, edited off for the network transmission of the show. But every now and again, there'd be something special that would happen. The Carol Burnett show here in the US was great for not even bothering to edit that out. They would leave that in because there was so much good material that would come from addressing the audience and doing, impromptu take questions, make a funny joke or whatever. So they kept it in. But anyway, yeah. So the very first Doctor Who Christmas episode you could consider to be that. But later on, there was, I would say, we don't think of for the Doctors before Eccleston, there were Christmas specials like Red Nose Days and that kind of thing, but they weren't considered to be canon episodes. There was I'm racking my brain. It was Adventures in Time or something like that. It was a Red Nose Day that happened to have been a 40th or 30th anniversary or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it was part of the holiday what do you call it? Charity event that the BBC was doing, and they got all the previous Doctors together and a bunch of the previous companions, and they threw them into this wonky, goofy storyline that, kind of fudged why you were seeing all different Doctors and all different companions, and it made absolutely zero sense. It was completely bonkers. Doesn't really fit canon, but it's definitely one I've got on my shelf right between Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann, just because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then starting with Eccleston, every year there was a Christmas special, and it was loosely Christmas based, right? It usually took place in the wintertime. There was some reference to it being around Christmas. I mean, the first one with Eccleston was very Christmas, with the mother saying something about being killed by a Christmas tree, and then later on with David Tennant, you had these robotic Father Christmases, trying to kill people and whatnot, and the spaceship in the sky, killing everybody, but it looks like a star overhead and stuff. So yeah, they always had a way to play around with that, right up to Tennant, the Kylie Minogue one that you were talking about with the angels,
the Titanic in space.
Yeah, and the Titanic in space. Oh, just absolutely bonkers. But
I think that started with the Titanic crashing into the TARDIS. I vaguely remember the the front
Actually,
of
the
the
TARDIS
Titanic crashing through the
or the
TARDIS,
Titanic,
and then like the
right,
life
right.
ring like on the floor, and it just says Titanic, and the Doctor's like really confused as what's going on.
Right. And then that led into another special, which was the Doctor interacting with a previous Doctor that was Peter Davison, the actor who would eventually be David Tennant's father-in-law. Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
another fourth wall break in a way, because although it was a scripted scene that was done for, I think it was a Red Nose Day, or something like that, where they're interacting in character, scripted, but David Tennant improvises a little line where he says something to this is supposed to be his previous self. He says something about, "You were my doctor," and that's really Tennant talking to Peter Davison. And it's, for a fan, that's just, the hairs on the back of your neck go up. You get these goosebumps, that's some pretty awesome stuff. If anyone could go back in time and say, now, you're such a fan of this guy, did you know he's going to be your father-in-law in a couple of years? I'm such a fan, I'm going to marry your daughter. But anyway, yeah. And in fact, as a David Tennant fan, she's the one that played Jenny in the one episode where the Doctor has a daughter.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The Doctor married the Doctor's daughter.
I have no idea which Doctor he is her father, but that's kind of confusing.
Yeah, Peter Davison. He's the one that takes place after the guy with the scarf. He's the one that was walking around with the cricket bat and a stalk of celery on his lapel. It was a very weird time. The Doctor wore some crazy costumes. You think that the baggy pants and the suspenders that Jodie Whittaker is wearing are goofy. I mean, you should see Sylvester McCoy with his big, question mark on his umbrella and the garish colors. It was just a very bizarre time, let me tell you, my friend.
Isn't it informed by the specific actor playing the Doctor? Like something to do with like
the idea
personal like taste or something.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually something that's always carried over, that since each incarnation of the Doctor has his own personality, they have their own tastes. But when you specifically get to Sylvester McCoy, and the question mark is a big symbol for the Doctor, it's incredibly on the nose, because it's basically saying Doctor Who ? It's like, oh, that's no. Before I think we're getting to a wrapping up point, but before we do, there's one other topic that I wanted to touch on, and we might actually be kind of coming from the same starting point on this one. Have you ever seen the Doctor Who films starring Peter Cushing as the Doctor?
I have not watched them, but I do know about them.
Okay, so
and also Rowan Atkinson as I think that was a comic relief thing.
That was another one. Oh, I'd actually forgotten that one, to mention that one. Yes. So the Peter Cushing, so we do come from the same point of view on the Peter Cushing, where knowing they exist, but not having actually seen them. What's interesting, from my understanding of them, again, not having seen them, they take a couple of storylines from the first Doctor, from the William Hartnell era, specifically related to some of the key stories of the Daleks, the first introduction of the Daleks and the Daleks' invasion of Earth, and sort of retell them in movie format. They don't fit continuity, because one of the biggest elements that is changed is that the Doctor is not a Gallifreyan who has come to Earth with his granddaughter, he is actually a human scientist who invents a time machine, calls it TARDIS, and his name is Doctor Who. He refers to himself as Doctor Who, which does not happen, in Doctor Who, the proper. But I've heard great things about it, that the quality of the show is very, very good. In fact, a lot of the Daleks and some of the props and whatnot ended up being reused in later serials of the TV show. So I definitely do want to get around to checking that out at some point. But you did mention, and now that you've mentioned it, I can't end the stream without mentioning it. Rowan Atkinson did do a special comedy feature called Curse of Fatal Death. What you may not be aware of is that episode, if you want to call it an episode, was written by Stephen Moffat. That was actually his first contribution to Doctor Who, and actually indirectly led to him becoming writing other episodes under the Davies era, and then becoming the showrunner himself. Some brilliant. I felt that it kind of it highlighted some of Moffat's talents as a writer and Doctor Who fan, because he actually dealt with time travel in a very clever, I would compare it to Bill and Ted, kind of way. This whole idea of, I'm just going to, in the future, I'm going to do this and I'm going to set this up so that this can happen. Ha ha. Then I will just, and that sort of a thing, and playing around with that, doing things with time travel that we don't see again until, the Davies era, where they do play around with time travel in very clever ways. For a show about time travel, I kind of feel like the Doctor has avoided doing anything complicated with time travel until, Davies and especially Stephen Moffat really started to play with it. And being very clever, where they would seed story elements that would be picked up in a later season. Like you weren't, I suppose, watching it during the Matt Smith era, but there's an episode where it was, for as good as it was in playing with the time travel, it was terrible that they were playing around with the Weeping Angels. They never should have gone back to that well. But there's a storyline where Amy Pond has to keep her eyes closed, and she's talking to the Doctor, and some of the dialogue seems kind of odd and disjointed. And it's not until a much later episode that you realize that the Doctor she's talking to is actually a later instance of him who's come back in time to leave a message with her. It's actually quite clever. But yeah, that's Doctor Who.
I do have a fact involving lost media in relation to Doctor Who.
Yeah,
it's because in the 80s, Marvel UK were putting out Doctor Who comics.
Yes,
they are actually a key joining point between the main Marvel universe and the Marvel Transformers comics.
Okay,
because the Transformers character, Death's Head. Oh, geez. The Marvel Transformers character, Death's Head. Because because Marvel wanted him to be owned by them rather than owned by Hasbro, they decided to introduce him in his own separate Marvel comic. And to do this, they had Death's Head be ejected from the Transformers universe, hitting the TARDIS, and then the Seventh Doctor shrinking him down to the size of a normal person, and then having a mini adventure with him.
Uh-huh.
and then they are having a second adventure with Death's Head, where he then drops him off on the Fantastic Four, the Baxter Building, and then leaves them. The
That's
sad thing
interesting.
is, this is all complicated, like legal stuff, so we can't
Sure.
get a physical copy of these issues. Like, we can get a hold of the Marvel UK Transformers books that feature Death's Head
Mm-hmm.
before he encounters the Doctor, and then the actual issue where he hits the TARDIS, that's in an issue of Doctor Who magazine.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't think that's available, or like, that's a little difficult to get a hold of. And then the issue where he had a second encounter with the Doctor, who then drops him in the Marvel Universe. That issue, you can read it online, but you can't get a hold of a physical copy, because if you buy a collection of the Death's Head solo book, it's missing that specific issue. So it's issue 8 of that book, and it's been removed because Marvel UK doesn't have the license for Doctor Who anymore,
Right.
so they can't publish that specific issue, but they can publish the rest of the book.
That's interesting. So but in this internet era, I would be surprised if someone doesn't have it available out there somewhere. So if you
Yeah,
really, really interested, you could probably find electronic copies of it. And then, someone like me would take it and, string it together in a visual format, like a motion comic, and make it all one saga. But yeah, I think that's a great transition to the next show that we're going to do, because I have promised to come on your channel and we're
yep,
going to talk a little bit about our respective experiences with Transformers, right?
yep.
Okay.
And as you can see, I have one on screen right now.
I was watching you change your icons as we were going through. I love that. I did love seeing Captain Britain, another Marvel Comics character
Yep.
that I happen to be a fan of. He That's a character that I don't think was developed very much here in the States. He may have gotten more play over in the UK, but great. I mean, he deserves his own movie from in the Marvel universe, I think.
Yeah.
I would very much like to see that. Um, I'm getting sick and tired of seeing all of these King Arthur attempts and reboots and
Yeah.
multiple takes on. Give us Captain Britain, for crying out loud. That's the way to go with that storyline.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. This specific image is actually a new figure that I got very recently.
oh, okay.
It's the Transformers Kingdom Cyclonus Voyager class figure. This is actually a very good figure. I've not put it down since I got it.
Nice. I will hold off and share my sharing about my history with the Transformers until we're on your channel.
Yes, and that will
Anyway,
be teaching Troy Transformers
pretty
or something
much,
something
yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah, kind of the peek behind the curtain. It's going to be more. I know very little. I did experience it in the 80s a little bit, but now I'm going to get the history and education from Matthew Flynn. Before we wrap up, any last words on Doctor Who?
Well, there is a few like favorite moments that I have
Tell
from
me. Share
specifically David Tennant's run, because that's the one I'm most familiar with.
those.
It's the episode, the werewolf running through Queen Elizabeth's
Yes.
mansion. I really enjoyed that episode,
That's
and I
one of
believe
those.
that also set up Torchwood a little bit.
It absolutely. It's exactly where Torchwood started. Not to mention, it's one of those great episodes that takes some real world history, the gem and the hemophilia of the family and so forth, and works it into the lore of Doctor Who. You know, I love when
Yeah.
they do stuff like that.
And also the 2-part episode, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. And I like this
Oh yeah,
specifically because it features both the Cybermen and the Daleks. And
yeah.
I think this is the first time we see them fight each other as well.
Well, on screen, we'd gotten it
Yeah.
in comics and so forth, but yeah, this is the first time
Yeah.
we've seen it here. Yeah, yeah. And we get some really good, you know, smack talk between the Cybermen and it's not just them fighting,
Yeah.
it's them arguing and a little bit of laconic phrase between them. It's quite ingenious.
Yeah. Actually, there's one thing that I just remembered that I can't believe I nearly forgot.
What's that?
It's in the Marvel UK Transformers comic,
Mm-hmm.
there was a storyline that was called The Time War, and this came out in the 80s, long before Doctor Who had that
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. That's something I was alluding to. I pointed out that in the Big Finish audios, there was a Time War storyline that Paul McGann his doctor was involved in, but I didn't mention that I knew of a comic Time War as well. And although I don't know the details of it, I have heard some fans online talking about their supposition that the comics, the Big Finish, and the canonical Time Wars may all be the same Time War, just in different timelines that result from the Time War itself. I think that's entirely possible.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yeah.
What would you say is your absolute favorite Doctor Who serial? Episodes, you know, whatever.
Probably, I forgot the name of the episode, but I know it's when the Master returns. Like when we, obviously from my perspective, I probably at the time wouldn't even know, like, you know, when the Master first regains his memories,
Oh,
and,
with
he's like,
alien arc and
yeah,
whatnot
they're at the end of the universe. It's called
by
Utopia, I think.
Dr. Yana and doesn't really. Yeah.
Yeah, and
You're right. I forget the
obviously for
name.
someone who's been with the franchise longer would like get that moment, but then someone like me who watched it knew. It was like at the time I had no clue what it was. It was just like, okay, he's called the Master. It's
So
like it's supposed to be a more theatrical than I ended up receiving it as.
that is a fascinating take on it, because whereas the continuity for the Doctor, even when it's disjointed, you eventually are able to fill it in. You know, there was that big leap between Sylvester McCoy, Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann, and then Paul McGann to Christopher Eccleston. But over time, we've been able to fill in all of those gaps. We kind of know what was happening to the Doctor all that time. The Master, we never get that. There are huge jumps, and you never get the connection between one incarnation and the next. Well, I shouldn't say never, rarely. So all of us are confused as to when one Doctor is happening in comparison to another. One Master is happening in comparison to another one, how he got to this point. And sometimes we never actually get that answer. But yeah, just knowing that the Master was a thing that happened and here he is again. I would even say that for a fan just coming to the Doctor in the Christopher Eccleston era, that's perfectly a great jumping on point, because you're coming in right as Rose does. And then you're able to follow along with the continuity from Doctor to companion and back again, you know, maintaining that storyline from that point of view.
Gone again.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm just going to keep moving the mouse around to stop the screens from going black again.
But yeah, so that's I would have to say I have a harder time because I have so many more Doctors to draw from. But instead of saying what my favorite Doctor Who episode is, I have some of my favorite Doctor Who moments. One of my and I, honestly, my favorite episodes moments. My favorite Doctor Who moments are the ones that make me cry. I think there is the one where um, just before David Tennant's Doctor regenerates, he's sacrificing himself to save Wilfred.
Yeah.
That one is, and it's less about the Doctor going through his regeneration and losing Tennant, because honestly, I've been through so many regenerations and losing favorite doctors that I've come to grips with it. But it's Wilfred and his acting, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Those interactions with him, there was something about the Master refers to him as granddad here, or daddy here, or something, and I'd be proud if he was my son. And you really get that
Yeah.
from him. You really uh you really believe that, right? And then he
Yeah.
has an opportunity to talk to the Doctor later, just the two of them, and saying, there's that weird dichotomy. I appear to be an older man, but you're many, many generations older than I am. But I would truly be honored to have you as a son, and that really impacts the Doctor. So when he does sacrifice himself for him, you get that feeling like, how could he not? Being the man he is, and caring for this
Yeah.
guy, he just absolutely couldn't. And there's that meme that has come up, because as the Doctor goes around saying goodbye to everyone, and then he does that little thing with the lottery ticket for Donna, and he sees Wilfred at a distance, and Wilfred is crying and waving. That's become a meme, but I'll tell you what, that busts me up every single time. That's more impactful to me than I don't want to go. It's that. The other one is at the wrap up of that big episode that's got the return of Billy Piper, and it has Liz Sladen coming back, and Captain Jack and everything, when they're all saying goodbye. When
when
Liz
he's going to different points in time.
Exactly. And well, they all come together. It's the fight with Davros. And they stop the Daleks again, and then he lands the TARDIS, and everyone is going their separate ways, and they're saying goodbye to him. And Liz Sladen gives him a hug and waves goodbye to him. After the loss of Liz Sladen, that one's pretty rough too, because it really is her saying goodbye to the character, saying goodbye to the Doctor, and us saying goodbye to Liz Sladen. It's really, really, oh my gosh.
For me, it was David Tennant regenerating, because that was like the first Doctor I really attached to.
Yeah, for a lot of people that was the case, and the old timers were all going, been there, done that, but there's an empathy there too. It's like, I remember when I had to say goodbye to my favorite Doctor.
And I also really like the earlier finale where the Master dies.
Oh,
like,
and
like,
the Doctor
I don't know
wants
if
him to regenerate, and he goes, "No, I won't, because it'll hurt you."
I don't know if that appeared in the classic series at all, with a Time Lord like refusing to regenerate and just die. I don't know if that ever happened.
Now that you mention it, no, I don't think it ever did. It was never until the Davies era. There was no indication that a Time Lord had any kind of control over their regeneration. Well, I take that back. There was one episode where Romana is shown choosing what her next regeneration was going to look like, very much in the vein of someone choosing an outfit for the evening. And she, there was a lot of fan debate about whether or not she was wasting Yeah, like well, yeah, that was kind of referenced by Dr. Song later on, where she's focusing on a dress size. But by then, it had already been established that they did have some measure of control over their regenerations. Prior, we didn't have that, except for this one scene with Romana, and fans were debating whether or not she was actually wasting regenerations frivolously, trying to get the outlook that she wanted, or not. But
Yeah.
that seems to be implied from later on, by Dr. Song, that she did have some measure of control. She could go into a regeneration deciding to look a certain way. That does seem to be implied by the fact that the second time we see Romana, after she does regenerate, she regenerates into an actress who had been previously in Doctor Who, and they comment on it very much the same way Capaldi had played a previous role. And there's, the doctor's like, gee, I wonder why I chose this face, and playing on that a little bit, and playing with the meta concept of the actor being the same, but acknowledging in character that they look the same and whatnot.
Yeah, like Martha Stewart's actor appeared in the show before she was the Doctor's son, or before she actually appeared as an actual
right. And didn't they reference
it was
her?
an Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. She was like a background character there. The actor was.
But yeah. So
and also I really like the meaning behind the Master choosing not to regenerate, because you're beating my overall plan, but I'm just not going to regenerate so that I actually die and leave you alone as the only Time Lord.
Yeah,
it's like there I win.
An ultimate middle finger, right? But ironically, or maybe not, depending on how you look at it, that's just how the Master rolls, right? Because just when it seems very clear there should be no way for him to come back, he always does, and we never get an explanation for how that's even possible. Same thing happens with Missy. Missy is when Missy dies, there should be no way that Missy can come back, and yet she comes back, and there's never going to be and we're all fine with it because Master, and we're just used to that. The one episode that I always recommend to friends that are like, oh, I don't even know where to begin with Doctor Who, there's so much history that I would have to catch up on. No. There's one episode that you can watch. It's a single episode. It's not a whole series. It's not a whole serial. Just one episode. And you can go into it knowing absolutely nothing else, knowing nothing. And that is the episode Blink. Right? Because you go into it, you don't even see the Doctor until midway through the episode. And the Doctor is just a background character. You're seeing the whole thing from someone who has nothing to do with Doctor Who at all, and then never comes back again. So that's a great compartmentalized thing. That's a great way to get the concept of time travel. And I thought that the time travel there was used brilliantly. That's why I really wish they had never gone back to that well with the Weeping Angels. There's
Wait, one David Tennant episode.
That was David Tennant episode.
Oh I remember that episode now.
But there's a scene which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And I don't even know if I'm not certain if it was even intentional, but the whole concept is that these weeping angels, as long as you're looking at them, they're a statue. As soon as nobody is looking at them, they're free to move. So there is a scene in which the main character is in the hallway and the statue is frozen. And she's not looking at the statue, but as soon as she steps in front of the camera and then steps away, the statue has moved. The implication there, and again, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it implies that these statues are frozen not only when the characters in the show are not seeing them, but when we, the audience, can't see them. See what I mean?
Yeah.
When we blink and nobody in the Doctor Who universe can see them, they can move. That's kind of freaky because it kind of breaks that fourth wall for you, that us watching them prevents them from moving. And that's kind of maintained too with later on when the lights are going on and off. We can't see them, just as the characters can't see them, and therefore they're able to move. They completely destroyed that meta level to it in the Matt Smith era when we see them moving. That kind of takes something out of it. We lose that wall breaking terror, right? We always knew that the Daleks can't get you because they're in the TV, but now you get the impression that I can't blink when I'm watching the Weeping Angels because I have an impact on them, right? I don't know. But yeah, that's always the episode that I recommend to a fan who wants to jump in, because then you can jump in and go, okay, I get what Doctor Who's all about, basically, and then you can pick it up anywhere.
Yeah. When you mentioned the Daleks just then, I just got like a domino effect of memories. I was like, Dalek, then I was go, wait, the Matt Smith introduced Rainbow Daleks, and then after that I was like, hang on, those Rainbow Daleks appeared in Lego Batman, but they weren't called Daleks because of legal stuff and everything.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too. So you were talking about how Doctor Who and Marvel Comics and Transformers and any other things, all different rights issues because they're different companies. Interestingly, as much as we consider the Daleks to be part and parcel of Doctor Who, the fact is they are the one, I think they're the only one, but maybe not. They are definitely a property that is held separately from BBC. BBC owns Doctor Who and all of its canon and continuity, but Terry Nation's estate owns the Daleks. I don't know how that happened. He was working with the BBC, but somehow he maintained those rights. So there is this thing that in order for BBC to continue to use the Daleks as part of Doctor Who, they have to keep using them every so often. Otherwise, those rights are lost to the BBC, would return to Terry Nation's estate, and they could never use the Daleks again without some sort of a new license. I have no idea what that would even look like, what that would do to past episodes and rights of DVDs and things like that. It boggles the mind.
Yeah. I imagine anyone who already owns DVDs that have Dalek themed episodes, they'll probably be fine. But any like new DVDs coming out will probably have some kind of a problem.
Yeah, and the Daleks are so integrated into the canon of Doctor Who. I don't even know how that would even work. It's just my, and there was a period in time where the BBC did try to write the Daleks out in order to continue on, and they introduced other villains that ended up just being one-offs, trying to take their place, and it just didn't work. Bizarre as it is, the Daleks are a strange touchstone. These mutants inside of tanks that look like pepper shakers with a plunger and a paint roller on the front are somehow
and only feel hate.
Yeah, that are somehow supposed to be so terrifying that Captain Jack and Sarah Jane feel like it's the end of the world whenever they show up, and those actors really play it. Like you honestly believe, because of those actors, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing. And then you look at them and you go, it's a teapot on rollers.
Yeah.
What is it?
And the most iconic of Captain Jack moments, where he's on board the station, he's naked and he pulls a pistol out of his ass. Except they don't meant to say anything about it, but we know that's what happened.
That's the only way it could be. Absolutely. Oh gosh, Captain Jack's a great character.
Yeah.
But they keep going back to that well too, because they
Yeah,
need
because I
something to
saw that
keep
the most recent episode they brought him back
they need
clearly for fan appeal.
yeah, because there is no appeal with anything else that they're doing. So they have to keep bringing him back to try and keep Doctor Who on life support, it seems. It's really, really sad, to be honest with you. I feel like too the whole Torchwood series was a lost opportunity as well, because they really had an opportunity to do a really good spin-off with that character, this sort of Americanized, well, I say Americanized because he speaks with an American accent, but he's Scottish, right? I don't understand that. I don't understand how you totally lose a Scottish accent so completely. That
Yeah, I think he's like from was it the 22nd century or something like that, or
no, I mean the
23rd?
actor. The actor
Oh,
is
okay, no,
from
the actor.
Scotland, and then he emigrated to the U.S. and completely lost his Scottish accent. I mean, it's like, what am I?
I think that might be a case of the accent like fades, but like he can slip right back into
Yeah, he has
when
said publicly that when he like talks to his sister, they both start to bring their brogues back, and if he needed to for a role, he totally could affect or reaffect or regain his original accent. But yeah, but I mean, from the point of view of the character in Doctor Who, it's for all intents and purposes an American accent. But yes, he comes from the future. They could totally do now. See, now they'd have to recast it, but I'd love to see something set in that future timeline with Captain Harkness and Captain Hart, which was another character.
and the face of Bo and all of that, whatever that was.
Whatever it was, yeah, kind of flesh that out. But I don't think we're ever going to. But because yeah, you have these time agents in the whatever century they're in. Gosh, that actually that would be a brilliant thing to do, right? For them to start doing that series and drop Doctor Who for a while. And then maybe spin off a new Doctor Who later on in the future that comes from Captain Jack and his show. Oh, that's pie in the sky thinking, though. I don't see that ever happen.
Yeah.
Now see, that makes me wonder. Did you ever watch the Liz Sladen series that they did for a while? The Sarah Jane adventures.
Oh yeah, that I do remember seeing multiple episodes of that show. I never actually watched it like in order and the whole thing all at once, but I do remember catching a few episodes here and there.
I always felt that whereas Doctor Who was mostly family friendly and Torchwood was definitely more adult, I felt like Sarah Jane was definitely more for kids,
Yeah, that's how I view all three of them as well.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. That's perfectly great. I felt also that they were originally planning to spin off Sarah Jane long ago, back in the 80s. There was an unaired pilot. Well, it's now available on the interwebs, and I think they've released it on DVD. But it was actually called Canine and Company, but it was really Sarah Jane, and she had K9 as a companion, which of course leads directly into Class Reunion with where they reintroduce Liz Sladen into the David Tennant era. You see her with K9, so they kind of indirectly are canonizing that unreleased pilot. You get the impression that she's had adventures on Earth all this time, that was happening in the background you didn't know about. I think that was further implied in when she finally did get her spinoff, because she's still got K9 with her, and then the kids and whatnot. That's another one I wish they would have continued. I would have loved to have seen what the kids continued to do. Even after Liz Sladen passed, they could have acknowledged that in the show and then just continued on with her son taking the lead role or whatever. I almost feel like that's what they intended when they did that one series Class. But there were a bunch of characters that were completely new characters that nobody cared about. So, there was never a hook for anybody other than the Doctor appeared in the first episode. Yeah, that's not really enough to hook us, Do you even know what I'm talking about when I refer to Class?
Kind of.
Yeah, see, most people are like, huh? Yeah, it was one season. It's the one Doctor Who related thing I don't have on my DVD shelf because I just wasn't that interested in it. It was supposed to be a Doctor Who spinoff about kids going to the Coal Hill School that showed up that Liz Sladen was at, and that comes from the very first episode of Doctor Who, the school and whatnot. But nobody cares because it wasn't directly connected to anything in Doctor Who. There was no carryover character, so we had to invest in a bunch of characters just because the Doctor appeared in the first episode, and it's in quotes in canon, but they don't use any Doctor Who aliens. They don't use any storylines. There's nothing else to tie it back to Doctor Who. So it's like, yeah, this isn't really a spinoff, and it didn't last past the first series. So you're not missing anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I figure, we may as well be completist and at least touch on it.
Yeah. And the 7 people who are watching here live will be the only ones who know about this.
Yeah.
Going into study hall, they were like talking about this to some of the others. They were like, "Wait, what are you talking about? I didn't know that was happening."
Yeah. Again, it was unintentional, but those of you that were able to join us, glad you did. Any other last minute Doctor Who thoughts before we wrap up?
No, that's everything.
I think that's about
nothing
it.
else on mind.
I almost feel it's, and I think this was inevitable. I almost feel it's a little depressing because as fans, we've tried to keep Doctor Who alive, and we've done it many, many times. We've had long hiatuses where the fans kept Doctor Who alive through fanzines and now the internet, and preserving lost episodes and restoring them to the BBC and so forth, recreating episodes and so forth. And now it's like a regime at the BBC has gone out of their way to purposely destroy Doctor Who.
The BBC overall is very much out of touch.
And they really, really do. It's starting to look like they've done such a good job that the fans no longer even want to keep it alive. It's pretty much done. But there's always hope, right? The nice thing is this is a franchise that's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It can be rewritten. There's always a way with Doctor Who, even if it's just fudging the storyline and retcon, fix, time travel, wibbly wobbly. It's all good. If we get the right showrunner at some point in the future, we need a John Rhys Davies. Excuse me, Russell T Davies. We need
Stephen Moffat.
Well, if you'd have asked me that about 10 years ago, I'd have said no. But yeah, at this point, I'd even take a Stephen Moffat, a Jon Favreau type, to come and care about the show again, to reboot it. But until then, I've got all of my doctors from William Hartnell up through Capaldi on my shelf, and that's where I end. There is never going to be a Jodie Whittaker on my DVD shelf.
Not mine neither.
But anyway, Matthew, I thank you so much for. Oh, I especially thank you for being patient with me and rough morning and miscommunications and scheduling.
Yep.
It was a trip. I wish I had a TARDIS to go back and reset everything, but I don't. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you were willing to stick with me and still make this happen.
I am nothing if not patient.
You absolutely are, and I super appreciate that. So we will then transition to at some point in the future, maybe next week we'll plan for on your channel
Yeah.
a Transformers. Should we write that in stone so that with Netter sitting here listening, she can make sure that so she can
Hi,
make sure that
Hi, Net.
make sure that I get up on time next week for the show.
Yeah, let's definitely put that in stone so we don't end up stretching this out for like 3 or 4 weeks, I think.
Right. So when you have that stream put together, send me the link and I will be there next week.
Yeah, I'll confer with you on like conflicting with other streams that you'll be at and that sort of thing.
No, let's do it same time. Whatever your afternoon, my morning on a Sunday, that'll work.
Yeah.
That doesn't usually conflict with anyone else who's streaming, and
yeah,
and
yeah. Next Sunday, same time.
Perfect. Well, the right time this time.
Yeah,
this time I'll be on because Netter will be watching me. She's my companion. She keeps me grounded.
Yep.
All right. Well,
it's good to have that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crucial. I think the role of the companion has definitely been to ground the Doctor so that he doesn't forget who he is. And I'll tell you, that's what Netter is for me. I would be lost without her. She keeps me focused. She keeps me relatively sane. I'm not going to say truly. But that is our talk for tonight. I want to thank you so much, Matthew, for joining me today. I'm going to thank the stream too. Thanks everybody who came. Again, I had originally meant for this to be a private stream, but I'm glad you guys all were here, listening and encouraging as you always do. That's why we do this. I'm going to take this and re-edit it, and it's going to be going up on Rumble. I don't know, hopefully by next week. So you'll be seeing a link going out, those of you that are following me, so that you can catch the replay. And again, I want to thank you all. Thank you, Matthew. I will be talking. Well, I'll see you in the community throughout the week, but I will talk to you again directly next week on your channel. Okay. Thanks again. Take care, everyone.
Yep, you too.